Hey everyone, I'm Jill and this is Yester Kitchen. If you're new here, welcome. It would be an honor to have you join us as we explore retro history through food. Although we're not doing food today, as you can see, I've got nothing on my counter. Well, I've always got my martini. So today we are doing something very special and very retro because we're starting 2021. This is my first episode of the year and I thought this would be a great time to air this. So on July 13th, 1985, there was a little known benefit concert. Actually, I'm kidding. There was a huge benefit concert called Live Aid that was in Wembley Stadium in London. The benefit was to raise money for famine-stricken Africa, and who's who of the music world donated their time and performed at this amazing concert. And people were watching it all over the world, including yours truly. I was in Hollywood at the time. It was 2 a.m. and because that was, California time for British time. And we started watching all night and it was amazing. So one of the bands that played was Dire Straits, who was hugely popular and actually had an enormously popular song at the time. Here they are playing their song, Money for Nothing. If you see in the front in the white, that would be Sting singing his famous words, not I want my MTV. And in the background, in the red coat, and the guitar player for Dire Straits would be Jack Sonni. Jack has been awesome enough to come and let me interview him. Jack has been a musician forever. He's also a foodie, a businessman, a wine enthusiast. He's a cook and he's an all-around awesome guy. So I just wanted to pop in really quick to say, hey, here comes the interview. I know a lot of you have been waiting. I'm so excited. He tells so many amazing stories and he answers a lot of your questions. So without further ado, here's the interview. Hey everyone, I'm Jill and this is Yester Kitchen and I am so excited today. We have such an amazing interview. You're actually in my office. This is where I do all my work unless I'm filming downstairs for you. And now I've already talked about him, so I am so excited to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Sonni. Jack!
Hey Jill, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
You know what, I just realized something. This is the Jack and Jill show.
You're right. I didn't think about that at all either. That's
Isn't that
funny.
great?
That's great. Absolutely.
I haven't heard that in years, but I used to get it all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've had my share of it too.
So I really want to thank you for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure. I'm honored.
I've got a lot of people that have asked questions, so
okay.
Everyone's curious, and I'm curious too. I mean, you were this much of a percentage of the population that actually got to experience being a rock star, like a real one,
yeah.
And I want to hear all about it. I know you're a foodie and I want to hear about that. And so I'm just going to start asking you questions and just hearing your stories. And it will make me so very happy.
Bring it on.
Awesome. So the first question I ask absolutely everybody that joins my show is, what is your biggest childhood food memory? Like the one food that just takes you right back?
It would have to be my grandmother's sauce, sugo, gravy, sauce, whatever you want to call it. I'm raised Italian household, and my grandmother would come and cook, and she just had this incredible sauce recipe that's been handed down to me, and now me to my daughter, and through the family. But I'll try to show you like a real quick story. I lived up in Healdsburg, California for a while, up in Sonoma County.
Okay.
And this was sort of in the days before it really blew up and exploded. And there was an Italian restaurant called Santi that had opened up. And actually this was before I moved there. This was a visit. I'd gone up to see some friends of mine and they were like, there's this place that's opened up. We're going to go out to dinner. And I'm like, okay, well, great. And it's like, it's Italian. And I'm like, oh man, you go to Italian, I never go to Italian restaurants unless I'm in Italy. That's how crazy I am.
Oh, wow.
But these guys I made an exception. It was like, okay, we're going, no, this place, their whole, and you'll love this because their motto was setting Italian cooking back 70 years. So yes. all the recipes that the two chefs, the two partners did were family recipes from their families, from other families, you know, this kind of thing. So we go, I'm looking at the menu, and I'm just going, oh man, I can make, you know, it's like that thing in me is like, how do you know, why would I go out for Italian food when I can make Italian food? You know, sort of thing, right? And I'm not saying I'm as, you know, Mario Batali or any of those guys, but you know, it's like comfort food, home stuff, right? And that's what this was all about. And I'd look at the menu, and down at one point is rigatoni with sugo calabrese. Now my family's from Calabria, and so I'm like, I'm reading the little description, and I'm going, man, all right, I'm getting that. And just to like, you know, prove a point, I guess. It was really like, couldn't possibly. The meal comes out, and I swear, Jill, the server brings the plate like over my shoulder to put it in front of me. And before that plate hit the table, I knew it was my grandmother's sauce. Oh. And I was like back in, I was like being 10 years old. It's just like came, and I mean, I didn't even taste it. I could smell it, and it was like, this is correct. And it knocked me out.
That's so awesome.
So I immediately go back into the kitchen and talk to the chef. And that's sort of my thing, is like, after I have a meal, I kind of weasel. The bathroom is back there, right? Go back and, you know, talk to the chefs for a minute. And once I moved up there, I mean, I became a regular and got to be friends with him. And two of the chefs that worked there broke off onto their own places, two really excellent Italian restaurants that I will eat at anytime.
So you've broken your rule now.
Yep, and I have. Yeah,
but
so I still make that. I still make that sauce. That's a thing that happens.
That's beautiful, and I love that you've passed it on to your kids now.
Yeah.
And
it's a family thing to do too. Like when we do get together, it's like, we're making sauce, right?
Gotta have it.
Yeah. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I've told everybody when I was asking for questions for you that you're not just a musician. I mean, you are a foodie, and you are a cook and a writer.
Well,
right?
Cook. You know.
Well, you love to cook.
I love to cook. Yes, I do. You know, so yeah, I have. But food has always been. Again, and my dad's side was Italian, my mom's side was Polish and Swedish. Equally huge families on both sides. I mean, when we got together for a holiday, like my mom's side of the family had to rent out the fire hall in the small town that we lived in to fit everybody.
Oh my goodness.
There'd be like these long U-shaped, horseshoe-shaped table, and talk about Jell-O molds. I mean, it was like this massive potluck. There'd be like 5 turkeys. There, just my grandmother's scalloped potatoes. It was like she had to make the scalloped potatoes. Nobody else was allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And so
the recipe?
I don't. I have to ask my mom. I'll guarantee you, though, it's probably in that Betty Crocker. She probably got out of that Betty Crocker.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, so food's always been part of my life in a big way. And when I finally, moved out of the house to go to school, I was like, oh shit, I better learn how to cook, or I'm going to be doomed.
You'll be top ramening it.
Exactly. Which well, I don't even know if Top Ramen was around in my day, but I'm a little bit older. But yeah, it was like, no, Lipton's chicken noodle, Lipton's, we used to call it, my mom would call it grass soup because it had all the parsley in it. But that was like some kind of powdered freaking soup that we had. So I started to, just dove in. And said, I'm going to learn how to make the things that I like to eat. And, it kind of grew from there, and it's become a very, very big part of my life, obviously, through the places that I've lived, my friends, the kindred spirits. It's sort of gathering at the table for food that we've prepared for each other is a big deal.
Isn't it?
It's like religion to me, my kids, family. It's like you do this. It's actually such an act of love.
Yep.
That you're offering sustenance. You're actually keeping someone alive when you cook food, which is, you know, a lot of people aren't into food. They don't think about it that way, you know, but it's true.
It is. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
You know, so much so that one of my daughters, you know, was training to be she was just finishing culinary school when she passed. And, you know, I mean, she was great. She was great at it. And but yeah, food. So, and music. I mean, it was like, it's the same, you know, cooking, you know, I'm not a trained chef, obviously. I spent a lot of time around chefs and, you know, have put on the apron I put on the apron in a kitchen in Milan once and cooked with a Calabrese chef who was living in Milan at this great restaurant. We got to be buddies. And I did a lunch service.
That's so cool.
I was like, yeah, I thought, you know, was like, oh yeah, I couldn't do this day in and day out. That's crazy. These guys are all nuts. It's just nonstop.
It's a lot of work.
And all my chef friends, you know, I see the hours that they put in, and you gotta love it.
Yep.
And so, you know, I've been really fortunate to up my game a little bit, and it's, you know, cooking. Once you get down some of your techniques, you know, it's like improv. It's jazz. It's like, totally. You know, you learn to, you know, taste as you go along, season to taste and taste to season. And, you know, it's just like playing. If you're listening to the other guys in the band, you're getting information and, you know, sensory stuff thrown at you. You react to that, and that's what makes it good. If you're not doing that, it's going to sound terrible.
Exactly.
You know? So, sorry. Well, you know, I got a bunch of soapboxes. I can just like keep bringing them out.
Well, speaking about guys in the band.
Yeah. Okay.
You were part of one of the most amazing bands, Dire Straits. And I would love to I have some very specific questions from people that have been sent in, but I would just love to know first, like, how you got into the band. That's going to be a good one. And then just what it was like. I do have some Live Aid questions for you, but what was it like to be on the stage side of the stadium, you know, instead of the audience side of the stadium?
Yeah. Okay. Well, your first question, how I got into the band. So I was living in New York. I had moved to New York in like late '76, and went to basically join a band, become a rock star, whatever I was going to do. And ended up, I had my own band for a while, and I was playing with a bunch of different bands and working in a guitar shop to pay the rent. And I was there for a long time, and nothing was really happening for me. And lightning was striking all around me. Guys, that I knew would suddenly be playing with some big band, and it was like just inches away. And that went on for a long time. And then at one point, David Bowie took my entire band except for me.
What?
Yeah, which was like, okay, maybe somebody's telling me something, maybe this isn't for me. And, it had been a long time, and I made the choice. So that's going on. In the meantime, I'm working at the guitar shop, and the guitar shop was one of the very, sort of early boutique guitar shops. And if you were a guitar player in Manhattan, in New York at the time, you came to that store, because the other stores were like big ones, kind of like Guitar Centers, where there was just everything, but there wasn't like a very specific guitar and parts and accessories place. And and doing custom guitars and repairs and all that. So it became a hang for a lot of guitar players, and got so well known that if you were on tour and coming to town, you came to Rudy's and you talked to Jack. And I had like my buddy Rogan, he was Pete Townshend's guitar tech, and he was Keith Richards' guitar tech. And anytime he was on tour, he'd come in and buy a bunch of guitars for me and hang out. And we'd take me to the shows and stuff. I mean, it was a thing. And one day, which made it also crazier because, you know, like I'm surrounded by all these guitar players, and, you know, guys are getting gigs, famous guys are coming in. And one day, Mark Knopfler walks in, and, you know, I'm not easily impressed. I hate to say that. Even then, too. I mean, I knew a lot of great guitar players. I studied with Elliot Randall from Steely Dan and hung around with that crowd of guitar players. And it's like, wow, you know, there's no joke in there, you know. And so, you know, I had heard I heard Sultans of Swing in the first album, and I was like, okay, it's not really my thing, but okay, cool. And he comes in, and there's no fawning over him, or, you know, there's no like, hey, it was basically like, hey man, how you doing? You know, and started hanging, you know, just, it was kind of near closing time. And he said, hey, you want to go get a drink? And I'm like, okay. And we just became fast friends. And when he was in New York, you know, he would call me up and we'd go hang out, and he would come and play. He'd sit in with my band if I was playing gigs, and we'd sit around my Hell's Kitchen, you know, rat hole apartment and play guitars, or then go to his brownstone and, you know, hang out and drink cognac and all that kind of stuff. But we were just, you know, I was focused on my thing, and he was doing his thing, you know. I was around for some of the recordings of the middle albums, because he was doing those in New York, and I would go to sessions and hang out a little bit. But there was never any talk of me joining that band. And it was always like, well, maybe he would produce something of mine or something like that, right? Then I made the decision to quit music and go back to school to be a writer, to study literature. Got accepted to Fordham University in New York, and was going to like work in the guitar shop and go to Fordham, and just figured
that was your plan.
I'll be a lit teacher in some upstate New York private girls school and teach the volleyball team.
Wow.
And get in a lot of trouble. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I was totally, that was my plan. You know, November, December rolls up, and I would talk to Mark. He was in the studio down in Montserrat working on Brothers in Arms. And I was like, he'd call every once in a while. Called one morning and said, hey, we had to make some changes down here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, we talked about the band, and, you know, it's like two guys. And he said, yeah, had to fire the other guitar player. How about you coming down and finishing the album and doing the tour with us? And I'm like, I hadn't had coffee yet. It was early in the morning. It was like, I said, what? And it's like, yeah. Now, I had just gotten the acceptance letter to Fordham like about 4 days before that. And I'd already told my parents I'm going back to school, and woohoo.
Wow.
Yeah. And the second thing out of my mouth, because he said, no, this is real, you know, you'll come back down and, you know, start recording. And the first thing I said was, dude, it's Christmas time. I can't leave the store. Are you crazy? It's like the busiest time of the year. I can't leave Rudy.
Aww.
He's like, don't worry about it. I've already talked to Rudy. And because we were all friends at that point. So I've already talked to Rudy, and we're taking a break, and we'll be back down in January. And that's how it happened. That's how it happened. I mean, I was literally on one side of the counter one day, and the next day I was on an airplane sitting in first class for the first time in my life with Mark and the producer, engineer, Neil, and the master tapes from the recording strapped into their own seat in first class. because they didn't trust,
Really?
obviously, putting them anywhere. Was it going to put them up? Was it going to put them up in the bin? Was it? They bought a fucking seat.
Wow.
For the
That is
tapes, and I'm like,
crazy.
this is some Rockstar shit. All right,
Yep. Yep.
this is good. This is
Welcome
where it
to your new
starts.
life.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yep.
Guess you just never know, do you?
You do not. Everything changes. Well, you know, this is the thing about life. You know, there's no guarantees. Nobody knows what's happening. It can go one. It will change in a heartbeat.
Yep.
You know, and you learn that on the good side and the bad side too. You know?
True.
So
True.
as long as you accept that, I think you're in pretty good shape.
Yep.
So,
just enjoy the moments, right?
That's it.
Live in the now.
As much as you can. All
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
All right. What do these people want to know?
Wow. Okay.
Or
So
you too. I mean,
me too.
yeah.
So my first question is from Margaret, and we're going to go back to Live Aid, because I mean, I know exactly where I was when I actually used to hang out at a club called the Rainbow on Sunset.
Oh yeah, I know the Rainbow.
And so
Okay.
that night, I mean, club closed down 2 a.m. Went to our friend's apartment because that's kind of when the time started, and watched Live Aid. It was just amazing, just amazing. Now you, on the other hand, happen to be there.
What's that?
I said you happened to be there.
I did. Yeah.
So Margaret asks, can you put into words what it felt like there on the stage, and did you realize at the time what an iconic moment it was?
Okay, like everything, you know, I'm not a short story writer. I'm a novelist, so I gotta give you a little bit, and you can edit, you can do whatever you want, but the band was already on tour, right? We had started the tour in March of '85, and Live Aid was July of that year.
85, yep.
Yeah. So, and we're out, and this is in the days before cell phones or, you know, internet, any of it. I mean, we're out in tour buses, and we're all over Eastern Europe, and we went to Israel and Greece, and, you know, and we're on a tour bus in planes. It's like you could maybe every once in a while find, you know, in a hotel room, some like German MTV, you know, or something. So all to say that we didn't have a clue. We didn't know anything about Live Aid. And at one point, the tour manager gets on the bus and he says, hey, just want you to know, in July when we go to, you know, we had like 14 sold out shows at Wembley Arena, which is like the size of the Staples Center, and it's across the parking lot from the stadium.
Okay.
Okay. So Paul comes on and he says, when we go back to, you know, when we're in London and we're playing those dates in July, Bob Geldof and somebody else has put together this big charity event for, you know, starving Africa, whatever, you know, and none of us are paying any attention. It's like, you know, too early in the morning after a gig, you're on the bus, you're basically just kind of like trying to sleep some more and knowing that you're going to another gig, and he's blah, 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 blah. And he said, yeah, we're doing this gig and, you know, it's a charity. Now, that signal meant that we weren't going to get paid for it.
And you woke up, right?
That was the only thing that I took away from the whole conversation was, okay, we're not getting paid for that gig. And which sounds really terrible, but just to say that, you know, it was just another thing. We were out on the road for over a year, and, you know, it was just going to be another show in a string of dates. Nobody sort of said that it was going to be televised all over, all this stuff. And it wasn't until we got early July, when I got to London and we were touring England, that we started to like catch wind of like what this thing really was.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I was like, wow, really? That's going to happen? And it was so far-fetched when you think about it. You know, now seems like it would be easily done. But in 1985, to do all of the feeds, all the video, camera, all of it, just to pull any of it off. And it really went off pretty well without a hitch, technically.
It did.
It was absolutely amazing. And, you know, so, God, these stories just go on, and I don't. So I'll leave out one side of the stories, but you know, the morning of Live Aid, everybody who was playing in the show was told to be at Wembley Stadium at 10 a.m. in the morning to meet Charles and Lady Diana in a receiving line, because they were going to be there. And so it was this whole big deal, you know, a receiving line to meet them. Now, this is the second time in 1 week that I've met them.
Oh.
Because in one of the gigs that we did at Wembley Arena, it was for the Prince's Trust charity, which was Charles' music thing. And Straits was supposedly Lady Diana's favorite band, and they were there for that. And we got introduced before that. And there's a whole other story that goes along with that. But so the bands are all lined up in the order that they're playing in, right, through the show. So, you know, I don't even remember status quo. Then it comes around the corner, and it's like us, Straits. Standing beside me is Brian May from Queen, and John Taylor, and Roger Taylor, the drummer, and Freddie wasn't there. He wasn't in the line. And
he wasn't doing well at the time.
Probably not. You know, when I think about it now, yeah. And then Elton John, David Bowie. And we're all, you know, they were taking pictures. I've seen pictures from the photo shoot from that thing, and they've got the back of my head, because I'm just like, Lady Di and Charles are coming down. It's like, I'm an American. What do I care? You know, it's like Brian May,
the Rockstar
dude, you know, was like, I mean, it's hard to tell now, but like in the day, I actually took the first Queen album that had a picture of him with his haircut, took it to a salon when I was in music school, and said, cut my hair like this dude, you know, this cat right here. And for a while, I did have like the big, you know, so that was the morning. And so we're hanging out, and backstage, they had set up basically a hard rock cafe. So I don't know if in Bohemian Rhapsody, I guess you do get a look at what was going on backstage. There was a lot of trailers and cabanas kind of set up with patio tables, and then the Hard Rock was set up, and it was a bar, and you know, just had TVs and all that stuff like a Hard Rock does. And they were showing the feed, so you could hang out in back, and you could hear the crowd. You could hear what was going on out here, and you know, watch it.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it was pretty wild. So we're standing, a couple of the guys in the band and I are standing in the Hard Rock and watching U2. They went on before us, and I'm watching, and it was the one where Bono drags the girl up from dancing with her and, you know, doing his shtick, and standing around, and all of a sudden across the room from the other entrance, the door opens up, and there's all this murmur, and Roger Daltrey and Kenny Jones and Pete Townsend walk in. And I'm just like, I had put Pete had come and played with us for the Prince's Trust a couple of nights before that, you know. So I had already had a whole other story with him. But he comes into this very crowded room, and Pete sees me and just comes straight over to me and says, I had such a great time playing with you. Give me a big hug.
Oh, man.
And I was like,
man.
So, you know, the backstage scene was like walking through my childhood fantasies.
I bet.
You know, all those bands, you know, were hanging out. You know, I'd walk by, and there was, you know, Bowie, and you know, this guy and that guy, and it's like, shit, you know. I wasn't around to see Paul McCartney. That would have been, you know. So we're standing backstage, like U2 does their thing. We get gathered up by the tour manager. We go to stand backstage, and I hadn't seen the crowd in real life. I'd only seen it on TV, and I'm watching it, and there's this weird disconnect happening. It's like, yeah, okay, we played to some really big crowds. Straits did, throughout Europe, like soccer stadiums. And so it was kind of like, okay, didn't really register. We go out, we're standing backstage behind these big drapes, and kind of like look around, and I can like actually then see that it's just people, and Sting comes up beside me, and he's going to do Money for Nothing with us. And he grabs my arm and he says, "You believe this?" He had already gone out and done his thing where he did it, or he and Branford Marsalis on the sax did it kind of solo, just the duo. And I was like, man, that takes some guts. And he's standing beside me, and we had met, and we, have a whole other couple of stories about that. But he looks out and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you scared?" and I looked at him and I looked back out and I said, Sting, I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Oh.
I said, "No, man, I am not scared." I said, "Let's go do it."
That's so awesome.
And that's no bullshit. I have been blessed with the fact that I've never had stage fright. From ever starting to play. I've just really, do I get nervous? Yeah, but I've never been like petrified or even, overly like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to go do this. It's like,
you're very lucky.
Yeah, I
one of the biggest fears.
It is. And I in a weird way, I don't understand it, because it doesn't, it's like, sorry to say, all I want to do is go. I just want to go. Let's get it on. Let's do it, man. There's like, what? This is it. This is what I wanted to do, And we went out, and then like when you're out on that stage and you're looking at all of that, this immense audience, just immense. And then the television cameras, suddenly become like, oh, I had a ball. I don't really remember too much about it. I think it was just like, it's funny because I've seen the videos and I think, do I remember that, or do I remember the video?
Wow.
What was my, try to remember what my perspective was at times, but we were so into the music, and you had, every band got 20 minutes and that was it. And if, they had these lights set up, green, yellow, and red, and it was green, went to yellow, you had either, I can't remember whether it was 5 minutes or 2 minutes, probably 5. And if it went to red, they cut the television feed and they went to Philadelphia. Oh. So, it didn't matter. It was like the same on their end. So if you went over, it was like, sorry.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
you literally lived your dream.
I did. It's crazy to think about it, Yep. In probably honestly the biggest band in the world at the time.
That's wow.
We did 256 shows in 365 days in 26 countries. 27 countries.
Oh my God.
I don't know why I remember those stats, but yeah. So when you think about that much travel and that much playing during that time, it was very little downtime. I might not, it was like being on a submarine or something for ever. Then, as we were talking about traveling before, I went up dozens of cities that all I ever saw was a hotel room and the backstage area kind of thing.
Wow.
Ate crappy food.
I've got a lot of questions about that, actually.
Let's bring it on. And I'm sorry if I ramble. Jill, you can cut me off, because
I am having way too much fun. Having way too much fun.
All right, good.
Okay, so now I have a question from Michael.
Michael?
And he actually has a couple questions. His first one was, what was on your rider? And for those of you that don't know, rider's kind of like a list of demands when you're performing, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so Straits was not one of those bands. They may have been, I don't know, all I know is from the tour that I did, and it was not a very flash sort of scene. There were no limos, no private jets, except for, some flying in Australia just because of the size of the country, and how it's all set up, but it was, you know, a lot of buses and a lot of stuff. So when the rider was first done, all I wanted was, I was sober and, you know, not doing anything at that time. And so the only thing that I got was Perrier. That was all I asked for, you know, because that was a high class water then.
Yes, it
So,
was.
Senor Perrier. Monsieur Perrier, I should say. Yeah, Swiss. Anyhow. So yeah, for the first half of the tour, that was it. You know, I just drank water, and you know, that was fine. The rest of the guys in the band, you know, it was not a big partying band. It was, you know, that's not what Straits was all about. So, you know, there'd be a couple of bottles of red wine. Mark was into drinking wine. You know, there might be a bottle of vodka. As far as, you know, the booze end of the rider, there was not much. And halfway through the tour, when the album, so it had literally been out on the road for 6-7 months. When we got to the United States, the album was #1, the single was #1, the video was #1.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, I think it's time to celebrate. So I went to the tour manager and I said, "Can I add something to the rider?" You know, it's like, "Sure, Mr. Water. You know, what do you want?" And I said, "I want a good bottle of French champagne every night." And he looked at me like I was crazy. And the bass player in the band, John Ilsey, like, he said, "For yourself?" I said, "Oh, I'll share it, you know, but nobody else is drinking champagne." So, and it's like, it doesn't come out of the band's money, it comes out of the promoter's money. So, so suddenly there was like wonderful French champagne.
Wow.
And then another bottle showed up. There were 2 bottles because it was like, well, if Jack's drinking champagne, we're going to drink champagne too. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. You know, it was kind of like muddy waters. You know, it's like, I only drink champagne. That's it. And that's the way it was for the rest of the tour. And once the promoters sort of found out, because, you know, the shows are done by different promoters at different times, and they're always trying to, you know, treat the band really well, especially when a band sells out in minutes, you know, so knows everybody's making big coin from that. And I would start to get just fantastic bottles of, you know, I mean, Dom, Veuve, I mean, it was always something good, you know.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. You didn't ask much.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what's one bottle of wine?
Right? Oh man, that's so cool. All right. Well, along with the food, we do have a lot of food questions.
Okay.
What was, or what is Backstage food like? Uh-oh. Sorry, I lost you there. You're back. Okay.
Oh, I'm back? Okay, yeah.
Like,
flashed off for a second. Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so you know, food, Backstage food, the rider and all that stuff. It really depends on the band. You know,
so it's whatever you request. They don't just like
pretty
put
much
food out there back. Okay.
Right. Now, having said that, Straits had been on, you know, this, I don't know, this was their 6th world tour or something like that, you know, and for whatever reason, they decided that they weren't going to do food backstage.
Oh.
They had a catering crew that came with it that like was basically, you know, for feeding the roadies, and dinner time was before the show. So, you know, the whole tour crew, they'd all go eat, and it was always like some, I hate to say it, some stodgy British, you know, thing. It's like, I can't eat this before I go on stage. There's just no way. So, and there would be like, I don't know, cold cuts or, you know, like the Spinal Tap platter was what would show up, you know. And kind of, so after a while, I asked catering for, you know, food afterwards. And they were like, well, you know, the kitchen shuts down and we got to pack up to get to the next thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you got peanut butter and jelly? And Lorraine says, yeah. I said, okay, can you just like make me a couple of peanut butter jelly sandwiches for after the show? And because what happened instead of that, and even then, there weren't many of them, because a lot of the times it's like the bands get taken out to a dinner, you know.
Oh, okay.
So that happened more often. So like after a gig, 11 o'clock at night, we'd get hustled, generally just the band and maybe a couple of record company people, to a really nice restaurant, and
Oh, wow.
and have a late night gorgeous meal in, you know, some chalet in some old castle in France.
That is so cool.
It's ridiculous when I think about it. Like, you have to understand, when these stories come out of my mouth, I don't even believe them. You know what I mean? It's just like, what? That guy's full of shit. It's like, no, it's weird. I was the one going through it, kind of going, do you believe this?
That's incredible.
Do you believe this? Keep pinching myself. You know.
That's serious. That's incredible.
So
Wow.
yeah, that was sort of the food thing. You know, I remember a great meal. Barcelona was one of the standout cities for me, and being Italian, you know, I got nothing bad to say about, you know, eating in Italy for sure, but Spain blew my mind. The food that I had all over Spain was so great. It's just fresh, simple, absolutely beautiful.
Very jealous.
Yeah, good. You need to get your RV over there.
Well, we're looking for a ferry. We'll see. Okay, so I have a question from Ryan.
Okay, Ryan.
And he wants to know, what is your favorite comfort food?
Oh, pizza, hands down.
Yeah.
You know, I think pizza, well, yeah. I mean, pizza is just a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful
it's
thing.
just one of the, you know, and once you've had good ones, it's just like, man, this is perfect. It's a perfect food. And, you know, you play the game, what's on your last meal menu and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, if it's not the grand, you know, 17 courses of all your favorite things throughout your life, and you got to pick one, it's either going to be fried chicken or pizza. That's it. For me, you know.
But those are just the classics, and it's like pure comfort, you know.
And I think there's, you know, it's like anything, to make a really good pizza, you know, is difficult. It's not easy. You need, you know, try to do it at home. Man, I've pretty much given up, and I've dived into that world big time for many years. You know, thanks. You know, Ken Forkish kind of rekindled my, you know, sort of love for that. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a baker up in Portland. He was a big hedge fund guy who, like, when he retired as a young man, was like, I'm going to learn how to make bread, and I'm going to learn how to make pizza. And he's published 2 really great books.
Really?
That makes it very easy to make really delicious bread, and if you have the right equipment, great pizza.
Huh.
And I highly recommend both of them. I've learned a lot. And, you know, people say, it's like, well, there's no bad pizza. It's like, yes, there is. It's like terrible.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and fried chicken to me is a very similar thing in terms of I believe it takes remarkable skill to fry chicken and fry it right.
Yep.
And have it be done and juicy in the middle and crispy outside and not burnt and not raw.
Yep. It is a talent.
It is a talent. And, you know, when I think about, and I've talked to my chef buddies, you know, if they've got a deep fryer, that's one thing. That's a different world.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it at home in a cast iron skillet or whatever, it's tough, man. And I think it has a lot to do with, when I think about the home chefs, the home Southern chefs, that I think it has a lot to do with the sound of the oil and the temperature that you begin to, you do it enough. Like anything, you have to do it a lot. You can't just like make fried chicken every 2 years and think that it's going to come out right. Anyhow, I'm sorry I'm on a rant, but those are my 2. And then there's hamburgers, you know, sandwiches.
Yeah, just classic. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I haven't done fried chicken on my channel, because it is such a specific art.
It is.
And everything I make, I want people to try at home. And
Good.
So, you know.
I understood.
Okay, so my next question is from Matthew.
All right.
And
where's Matthew from? Did you say?
Probably, I think he's out in California.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? My last question was Matthew's. I kind of combined it. Okay, so Matthew's question was that you already answered. What is your favorite comfort food when you're home relaxing? So
okay.
So Ryan's question goes back to Dire Straits, but I think you kind of talked about it, but I want to make sure he gets in there. What was a typical meal, or even was there a typical meal? But I think, said whatever.
Yeah,
peanut butter and jelly
it'd be like, yeah, for me, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as far as what happened at the gigs. Catering made, like shepherd's pies and, or boiled potatoes and beef. It's just like, unfortunately, and I love, the woman's name was Lorraine. She was a beautiful, just big-hearted woman, big woman, and just, she would do anything for us. And I felt bad not really eating her food, but she understood that I just couldn't eat that much food before going and playing a 2.5-hour show,
Yeah,
around.
That's just playing a show is very, very physical.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's something I think a lot of people don't think about, because we're just standing and bebopping and dancing around and watching, and you guys really are working hard.
Yeah, and if anybody's watched any of the videos of those shows, I don't stand still for a second of that 2.5 hours. I don't know where, like I said, Perrier's got something to it, I guess, but
there's a little caffeine in there that you just don't know about it. Okay, well, I think those are the questions. Now, I've got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
I read somewhere that you actually got to see the Beatles. Is that true?
No.
Huh.
Unfortunately.
Then I take that completely back. Someone's lying
I
about you.
I did.
You're not that old.
I did literally almost run into John Lennon on the street in New York one day. He was like across from the Dakota when I was living on the Upper West Side, and I was running to the subway to go. I was late for a session, and I'm running down the street, literally.
Oh, you literally ran in?
Yeah, I was like running to get to the subway and get on this train, and I got my guitar gig bag, and I'm looking down, and there was across from the Dakota on 72nd Street, there was this little Japanese like gift shop that had like a kimono in the window and these things, and I'm barreling down, and I go past it, and on the corner of my eye I see this couple standing looking window shopping, and I realized it was the two of them, and I literally, it was like a cartoon. Heels smoking and all that stuff, and I turn around, and it's like when I think about it, it's like nanoseconds of thought. It was like, oh my God, there's the reason that I'm here playing guitar. What am I going to say? What could I possibly say to him that he hasn't heard before? And should I bother? And something happened, and I'll never know whether it was for real or my interpretation of it. But he was standing with his hands behind his back like this, right? And I'm standing there looking at him, and I see this.
Okay.
Like, and I'm thinking, is he waving at me? Is he acknowledging that I'm actually standing here, or is he just twitching? I choose to believe that he was saying hi.
I'm going with saying hi.
I took off. But yeah, and I've never seen McCartney, Ringo, didn't get to see George. Yeah, I didn't see the Beatles.
Oh,
unfortunately.
I'm going to have to find out where I heard it and then let you know.
Okay, good.
So now let's talk about like you today. I mean,
okay.
I know you're a writer, right? You love writing.
Yes.
And you're also starting a very big, cool project, a radio station, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So yep. I want to hear like, about your writing and what you're working on. And then I would love to hear about the radio station. Okay. That's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be part of it. You know, the writing, I started seriously writing just before I left Guitar Center, and that was sort of the catalyst for me to leave. It's what I'd wanted to do from the time I was a kid, and I never really stopped writing, but I didn't write anything, I would say, specific beyond, you know, it wasn't like I was working on novels or short stories this whole time. You know, I was journaling, I was sketching ideas out, writing a lot of essays. I was doing, originally working on personal essays. Okay. And it got to the point where guitar, you know, the corporate world was just wearing me down, and I was done. And so I started working on a memoir, because that's what everybody told me I should be writing back then. It's like, well, your story, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And I started on it, and I was like, and I realized, I got an agent pretty early, and, you know, got some interest from, you know, 2 different publishing houses on it. And then they started asking me for changes. And it was right at the beginning of when all of the rock memoirs started to come out, big and small. But, you know, Eric's, Clapton's, and Keith Richards, and, you know, then Pete's, and it's just like on and on and on. It was this big avalanche, the Motley Crue book. And they started asking me to change things, and like, where's the sex, drugs, and rock and roll? And I was like, that's not the book that you know, that's not my story. But, you know, for what it's worth, I'm more interested in diving into what makes people chase dreams till it'll almost kill them, how you face giving up, what happens when your dream comes true, and then what happens when that ends, and what happens to your identity. Because we are a culture of we are what we do, unfortunately, right?
Very true.
What do you do? I do me.
I love that.
That's what I do now.
I absolutely love that.
It took me a long time in my life to get to that point where it's like, this is me. This is what you get. You come to Planet Jack, and it's, you know, music, food, getting together with my friends, ranting and raving, whatever. This is, you know, my joint. And, you know, once they start, and it wasn't making any difference. I was starting to go, okay, I'll tell this story about me and Madonna, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, it still wasn't enough, because it wasn't, you know, all those books, it's the same kind of tired story. You know, it's like,
right. Just the names change, right?
Right. Yeah. Young, blah, 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 made tons of money as a youngster, got rich and famous, drugs, blah, 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 almost died, blah, 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 you know, went into rehab, came out, and now you know, okay, life's wonderful. And it's like, that's not it for me. So I shelved it. And then when I started going to, when I got hired to be the house manager and the writer in residence at this literary arts center on Martha's Vineyard, I started to rethink what I was doing, and realized that, like, no, originally as a kid, what I enjoyed was fiction and novels, and that's what I wanted to write. So, but I hadn't found this story. I hadn't, you know, couldn't figure out what it was yet. And it took me a little while of, you know, banging around and trying a few different ideas until I finally landed on the story. And, you know, I finished a first draft about 2 years ago. It went out to a few agents, and, you know, I racked up my first score of rejections. And so, and then a bunch of life stuff has happened sort of since then that I had to put those things on hold for family things. And, you know, I'm back to revising it. And that's one of the reasons I'm here in Mississippi. It's like a place that there's something in the water, the supportive group of my writer friends here. It's really helpful for me to get in that space. So I'm hoping, you know, maybe through the winter into next year, you know, that'll go back out and do a better job of nailing it down.
I cannot wait.
There's some food in it.
Well, now you got my attention.
So the radio station. Well, and there's also, one of the other aspects of, like you gave the introduction. It's like there's a bunch of slashes. It's like writer, musician, whatever, food dude. I just wrote a column for a food column and a recipe for a friend of mine's new website. That's all about. I'll send you the link. It's a lifestyle website for medical professionals. It's kind of like, not medical information, but it's like, here's what you do with your life. Here's healthy eating. Here's this. Here's that. Here's Jack's chicken cacciatore recipe.
Oh, I love cacciatore. Well, send it to me and I'll put it in the description so everyone else can see it too.
So where was I going? What was I ranting about?
The
slashes. So I'm still, in the past year and a half, I got back to recording music, writing and recording music, which I had not done for 30 years. When I went into the studio for the first time about a year ago, I hadn't been in a recording studio since probably 1986, 87, and had no interest really for quite a while of doing my own thing, and just through a series of friends. Actually, I don't know if you ever knew Keith Nelson at Guitar Center. Okay, so
I'm just going to interrupt really quick, just so everyone knows. The reason I know Jack is because we both worked at Guitar Center at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I keep referring to that. So I feel like, well, who cares?
Long time ago.
Yeah, several lifetimes ago, actually.
Several lifetimes ago.
But Keith, who great guitar player, was the main writer and producer of Buck Cherry, and had great success. And again, he went from behind the counter to not quite the same trajectory that I went through, but had a great career. And he spends his time now producing and co-writing with other people. And he had been after me forever. Like, come on, man, I got the studio in the house. Come on. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. I got nothing. I got nothing. And he kept after me. And then when Nadine died, I spent a bunch of time thinking again about life, my life, what I wanted to do with my life, who I was. Yes. And I was on an airplane coming back from being with my family in Connecticut back to LA to start to pick up the pieces. And I made the decision on that flight that I was going to call Keith. And I said, we're going to get into the studio and see what happens. And called him up. He said, come on down. And I'm not joking. In 20 minutes, we wrote a song together. That's just like one of my favorite rock and roll tunes. And
really?
So now I've got about 14 songs that are really high quality demos. I mean, I would love to get back into a real studio to do it. But yeah, I've been writing. I was doing vocals before we did this. Wow. And I work with my partner, besides Keith. The other guy that I work with is actually in Italy, an amazing guitar player and part of my band. We're partners now. And we send tracks back and forth over the internet. And, I sat here the other morning with my acoustic guitar and sang and played into my iPhone and sent him the tracks. And he sent me tracks back today. That's like, here, man, check this out. So I was singing on those. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen with it, especially now with COVID. At one point before this, there was a couple of, record labels sniffing around and kind of really curious about what I was up to and all that. And they liked what they heard originally. But now it's kind of like, we don't know. You can go out live and play and all that. So,
yeah.
So so those slashes are all happening. It's sort of this balance, balance that I've tried to discover and maintain in my life, to realize that the identity thing, one thing does not preclude the other. That, again, like our society is, you're a waiter? Oh, no, I'm an actor. I mean, it's like, like that. Everybody's got something else going on, but at some point you're like, No, no, I'm a waiter and an actor,
Hmm.
and an
And a
Uber
lover
driver.
of food, and
Right,
this, like,
right.
not just
Yes.
about what you do, is who you are is
Yeah.
so much more than what you.
Yeah, it's really, in some ways, it's unfortunate this knowledge gets to you at the end, towards the
I
latter,
know,
latter
right?
part of your life. Thought I was so smart when I was 22. Jeez.
Well, at least we figured it out at some point.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people never do.
Right,
They do not.
right.
And, so.
And now you're starting a radio station.
Yes. So I discovered, during the pandemic, one of the things that I started doing was going on Facebook Live or whatever, and I would just sort of play. And it was when I was down here, and I would just grab a guitar and sing. And then that grew into these, what I was calling live stream festivals, where I'd take a whole Saturday, and it would be an 8-hour broadcast. And I would have all my different musician friends, my chef friends. It was like a all-day variety show. So, I'd play some tunes. My friend in Italy would play, a friend of mine in Spain would play, and we just like had our own little Live Aid kind of thing going on. And,
So awesome.
would invite chefs, and we did like, a couple of, one of my buddy down here did fried chicken recipe, and then we would have a happy hour thing where I would invite like 4 or 5 of my bartender mixologist folks, both pros and home guys, and we would make cocktails and talk and chatter around. And the thing, everybody got excited about it, and there was a lot of chatter, but it never reached. I mean, Facebook is just not a great platform to reach people. It's just not. They choke it, and anyhow. So I was like, plus the thing is, there's no licensing to play. Like, if I wanted to just sit around at night and play DJ for people, on Facebook Live, I can't do that. I can't play my music collection. And so I started to think about, what's another avenue that I could do that, build a platform for all of the artists that I know that are doing things like yourself. How do I build a platform that's going to reach people, and that's the main driving force behind it. Besides the fact that, again, these sort of slashes in our life, like Mariano, some of the other cats from Guitar Center that I've reconnected with and all that. It's like, he's a great drummer. He's also a really good cook, and he does his own little fucking taste tests and, stuff with his son. And I mean, he's deep into it. And Bradley Johnson, bass player, he's a great cocktail guy. I mean, it's just, so it's like, okay, what are we going to do with all this? And if I have any shine left on anything other than my bald head, that, if my name can do anything, in terms of this, whatever notoriety I have left, it's like, I want to build a platform for my people, for my kindred spirits. It's like, and wrap it all, everybody's going to expect it to be music. So it seems to me, what better way than a radio station? It's old school, but you turn it on, you're going to hear cool tunes get turned on to stuff that you might not know about, and then you're going to hear a bunch of groovy people talking, which was like what FM radio was in the old days.
Oh, yes. I miss that.
So, big dreams. It's like one of those things of like, hey, there's an idea, and then you start to go, holy shit, now I got to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, as putting things together. It's kind of like, oh, okay. But I'm enjoying it. I'm very close to getting it launched, and hopefully some of your fans will join in, and
they will hear about
music.
it.
Right. All right.
I cannot wait. Yeah, that's going to be fun, and I will definitely be letting everyone know once we get closer.
Awesome, Jill. Thanks.
Jack, it has been so much fun.
My pleasure.
I
really,
just want to thank you.
Now, I'm around, and
it's just
like I
hearing.
said, telling these stories these days is like still like walking through a dream. Like I can't, when people ask, what was it like to be a rock star? What was it like? It was a dream. And it was the weirdest thing, because it got snatched. It was like an alien abduction. I got plucked out of, my life. And for a year and a half, I lived this other life. And then I got sort of dropped back down into another life. And it was like being Dorothy and waking up and kind of going, oh, I had the wildest dream. And you were there, and you were there, and you were there. There's all the posters on my, bedroom wall as a kid. It's like Jimmy. Well, Jimmy wasn't there, but Pete Townsend is.
Oh, yeah. So. Well, I want to congratulate you on being one of the few people that have actually lived your dream. That's all kinds of cool.
I'm
all kinds of cool.
Pretty grateful, absolutely grateful that I got to do it. And I know how it's such a long shot. And I think. And that understanding, not to take up any more time, but that understanding of that, even though it's been years, it's like, that's what's driving my desire to do what was the festivals and what this radio station is. A friend of mine, because we were very good friends at the time, gave me the keys to the highway. I mean, Mark made my dream come true. And it's not that I wasn't capable of it or I wasn't ready. He would have never done it if I was a shitty guitar player, but he did that. And I recognize that, that gift, and whatever I can do, again, because of that notoriety or paying it forward or whatever, I just, the platform's more important to me and what happens with my friends than, I know I'll have fun playing DJ for people, but I really want to help spread the word on your thing. Mariano wants to make a bottle of salsa. It's like, okay, man, let's make it happen. Let's do it. So.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't hang up. I'll be right back. But I'm just going to say, okay, thank you so very much. And I will see everybody else right back on Yester Kitchen.